Hey guys, and thanks for tuning in. Today I thought I'd do a small video on coffee roasting, which a lot of people have been asking for. The idea behind this video is to make it as simple as possible. So you can buy a roaster, go to a friend's roaster and just jump on it and have a play with it. I'm not going to go into great details in this video about each stage and every little detail. What I wanted to do was give a video that's simple to follow, a few steps to look for, and you can start playing and get experience with roasting. A lot of people go into great details, different videos. One video just on the different stages of roasting, and although they're all very helpful, overall I think it confuses a lot more than it helps. So this video is going to be very hands-on, and it's going to be hopefully easy to follow. Let me know if it's not. And we're just going to roast a batch of coffee, and after this video, if you watch it, I believe if you follow my tips, you should be able to roast on your own little coffee roaster at home. The machine we're using today is a 15 kilo Roast Max. The Roast Max is out of Turkey. The monitoring program we're using is from Coffee Snobs. I don't recommend the software. It's a very basic software. I just wanted to show how little you actually need to start roasting coffee. We've just got one probe in there that's bean temp. We don't have an exhaust temp. We don't have an ambient temp. You can go as crazy as you want with different temperature probes. I just wanted to do a basic video on how simple it is to roast coffee, and not to be scared and confused by some people that make this into extracting water from rocks or something like that. Roasting coffee has been perfected over the years, and if you stick within a certain set of parameters and look at your charging temperature, your rate of rise, your first crack, and your time after first crack, and your rate of rise after first crack, it's not that difficult to roast superb beans. A lot of people want you to think that this is intensely hard, extremely difficult, and there's only a handful of people in the world that can do this correctly. And that's simply not true. There's no reason why you can't do this on a small scale. There's no reason why you can't learn this by yourself. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars on a coffee course, on roasting courses. A lot of this is experience, getting to use your equipment, getting to know what happens when I put more beans in, less beans. I think the biggest thing is not changing too many variables. From what I hear, a lot of people play around with a lot of different beans, a lot of different temperatures. I think leaving that to last is better, because there are variables. There is a lot of variables with roasting coffee, just like making coffee. When you make coffee, you can grind the grind setting, the machine setting, the extraction time, all that has an effect. Now, if you play around with too many variables, you're not going to know where you're at in the end. So that's my biggest recommendation is keep it simple, keep the batch size the same, go to about 70-80% of the capacity of the machine. Do not go to 100. So on that Roast Max, that's of 15 kilos, we found that 12.5 kilos is max capacity. Now, that's not to say I can't roast 15 kilos. I can roast 15 kilos in there, but if it's a hot day, I'll struggle. If it's a cold day, it'll be fine. If anything goes wrong during the roast and I need to increase the temperature and catch my rate of rise that's dropped, can become a big challenge. And that's the other thing is, if it gets too hot and just accelerates, it can be very hard to slow down a roast that's out of control. So that's some of the main points I think to consider when roasting is keeping the same capacity, especially in the beginning when you're learning to roast. So if it's a 15 kilo machine, or if it's a 5 kilo machine, 80%, 70 to 80% capacity is good. You start increasing, and depending on what sort of burner you've got and what sort of exhaust you got, you're going to run into problems. I'm trying not to make this video too long, so I think we should move on to the roaster, and I'll speak during the roast and point out a few different things. Thanks for watching again. Please subscribe. Any questions in the comment sections, feel free to leave some questions, and yeah, feel free to share the video, and hopefully I'll have some time to do some more. Alright, we've got a charging temp of just 200 degrees. That's me letting the beans in. The temperature keeps dropping, and 30 seconds after that we're going to turn the gas on. So that's giving the beans a bit of time to get used to the drum and extract some heat from the drum, and we're not just hitting it with 100% fire straight away and flames, because that can scorch the beans. So here you can see that the temperature keeps dropping right down to the point, the turning point, where it will start to increase. Okay, here we've reached the turning point at 86 degrees. So that means that the temperature inside the drum is now increasing, it's not dropping anymore. So the heat from the burner is at 100%. That's the heat there, it's at 100%. We've marked it, and we've marked that the air vent is a quarter of the way open. So that's what you can see there, that handle. So at this stage, everything's looking fine. We're trying to follow that line there, and we're trying to get this roast exactly the same as the previous one. At the moment it's at 18 is the rate of rise, which is really just temperature over time. Temperature over time, yeah. So at the moment it's so a rate of rise of 20 is quite high. A rate of rise of 3 is very low. Here we can see the green beans, and there's 2 probes there. One going into the viewing glass, which we've put in, and the original probe next to it. The original probe is quite useless from the manufacturer. Beans haven't taken on any color at all. It's still early, very early in the roast, and that's what that looks like. So that probe there goes to our monitoring, and the other one is just what the machine came with. So at the moment we're at 114 degrees. We're probably like, I think about 3 minutes. I can't see what it says on the screen there. We're about 3-4 minutes in. 3 minutes. We're 100% heat. At this stage I've decided to turn the heat down to 75%. I've done it there on the monitoring software, and then I obviously got to do it on the machine itself by turning the handle. So you can see there, we've decided to turn the heat down early on there, as against here in the previous roast. Alright, so I've turned down the temperature at this stage. I just felt that we needed to go to 75% heat. So we're the gas is at 2 kPa and we've gone down to 1.5. And I've made that adjustment on the software. The monitoring software is very manual. You can see the red line there in the screen. And now you're going to be able to see that's the gas. So we're going from 2 to just under 1.5. The rate of rise is now sitting somewhere between 10 and 13, which is fine for this stage in the roast. When we hit first crack, I don't want to be much over 10 of rate of rise. Okay, you can see that's where we are in the roast. That red line keeps growing, and it's not matching the heat we were using previously, but the curve is matching the previous curve, and that's what's really important, is trying to get consistent roast to what we did last time. So the part that looks like steps down, that's the monitoring software of the previous roast where I've turned down the heat. So I've gone from 100% to 75% to 50% to 25%, so on. Even turned it off at one stage. Alright, so this early on in the roast, the beans are still fairly green. Nothing really happens. I wouldn't even test and have a look. This is purely show and tell for you guys to have a look. Nothing happens until first crack, coloring wise, very little. Someone's going to correct me and say, oh no, there's a lot of stuff happening. So if you look on here, we've almost at the, the curve is perfectly intact with the previous. You can't even see there's two lines on that curve, and that's the temperature increasing like it was in previous roast. The red line just indicates where we are at heat wise. So now we're at 75% heat. At this stage we're going to follow the previous roast, and we're going to probably turn it down very shortly to 50% heat, which is going to be 1 kPa. So I think there's going to be, yeah, see, we've turned it down now, and we've made that adjustment on the software. I'm doing that with my fat finger there. So now we're at trying to get there. That's why this software is just, it's a bit useless. So yeah, and that just drops that red line down and indicates that we're at 50%. But on the curve, you can hardly see there's two lines running there. That's how well we're matching the previous roast. Alright, so I think we're going to just fast forward a bit because this is getting probably a bit boring to watch. Alright, I'm just about to turn the volume up, so hopefully you can hear first crack, and then the volume will get turned down again. Alright, listen very carefully for what sounds like popcorn. When you get that sound, that's first crack. Multiple pops after each other. So on the software we hit first crack, and then we open up and let all the air out. Otherwise we're going to overheat and smoke out the roast. We drop the heat completely, and we want the rate of rise down to about 3 or 4. Here I'm moving my finger across just to indicate my fat finger here. That's just showing that, alright, we've turned the heat off, and we're monitoring that. We're recording that on the software. Now I'm waiting for the rate of rise to drop down. When it gets to about 6, that's when we want to start applying some heat again. We don't want it to drop to 0, but we certainly don't want it at 10. So that's what we're doing for the next little while, is just watching and waiting for that temperature to drop down. There'll be plenty of cracks happening here. I also like to take set a timer from first crack, and depending on whether I'm doing Ethiopian, which I'm doing here, I want a bit lighter, or whether I'm doing Brazil, which I want darker. All depends on whether I decide, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes after first crack. And it's just a good indication on how much time I've got to. Now the vital signs here, and everything starts happening really quickly. Every 15 seconds, you're going to be able to see different changes to the beans. And what we're looking for is we want the beans to start looking a bit smooth on top. We don't want the beans to be wrinkled. We want them to start smoothing out, not completely, but almost. Well, I'm not sure why this guy's smelling the beans. He must know something that I don't know. But at this stage, we're just trying to get to where the beans are smooth, and that gives a good indication of them being roasted enough that we're happy with that. Like I said, these are Ethiopian, so we don't want them very dark. But more than the color, I'm looking for the smoothness of the skin. When they are completely smooth, they're almost roasted too long. So I think the important bits here is that we did time the roast 2.5 minutes after first crack, and we kept the rate of rise between 3 and 5 once you hit first crack. These are really the important factors in this roast. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Check out our online store, spinaespresso.com.au.